I have lowered my resolution. I hope that this resolves the issues that I'm having. I have lowered my output resolution. Don't you message me, sir. All right. We're live. Get in there. I pull the video up. So I know it's even real. I don't even know it's real except by looking at my TV. Boy, this is good for me. This is how I learn. All right. And you guys can see all my private details in there. You guys can see all my secrets. Get out of there. All right. You guys you like this? I like this. I'm trying to make it. I'm at 42:50. I'm trying to make it to an hour. I might watch the rest on my own and come back. This is a live stream, so I don't know. But I feel like maybe it'd be more fun to just watch the rest of it, come back for another live stream after I made it to the 1 hour. All right, let's rock. Let's just dive right back in. Sorry for the hold up. Sorry for jumping between. This is the third time I'm jumping on. I believe that I had my resolution. I was being a little bit ambitious with my resolution setting and had to crash my computer to get out of that.
So to imagine that people who have a blue traditional worldview are actually at the highest stages of development is upward projection. It's taking the ideas from a lower pre-rational stage of development and assuming that's what represents second tier. And that is a pre-trans fallacy. Now, there's a couple ways that we can know that this is upward projection and a problem. One is that if your ideas at this higher level are the same ideas from this lower level.
It's states and ideas are not the same thing. States are like knowledge is irrelevant to states. States are an experience that is ineffable in language. So yes, you'll have that state experience in Vedanta at level 4, and you'll believe of it that your level 4 stuff. The sped up AI discussion finally yeah, I hope that's not too annoying, but yeah, I watch videos at faster speeds in general. The videos are long, man. My videos are long. I tried to tell everyone to watch my videos fast.
Then
I know it drives some people nuts.
If your ideas about what it is to be in second tier are just blue, what makes them second tier, right?
But yeah. The state experience is its own deal. We're making this claim that to create culture and society from those state experiences, from those realities, would be the higher levels of the third tier. That's a fringe claim, even of Integral, but we're not saying so. I think that Integral is pretty clear. Maybe it isn't, but I'm clear. I think that however you explain the state experience, however you describe it, that is definitely going to come from the level at which you explain and describe things, no matter what. So you might describe it at level 4, level 7, and you have to factor in your audience too. It might be that you're at a higher level and you're describing it to someone that you're assuming is at a lower level. Then you might invoke these ways of describing it that might not be authentic to yourself. So there's a lot of issues with, when you look at another culture's capacity to access states and the revelations that states impart upon a person, to not consider those equivalent with the way that they describe it or the knowledge of the mythology itself. The mythology is most often pointing out a state reality, not a knowledge reality at all. And this is an area of massive confusion where the pre-trans fallacy is most applied. This is where Ken Wilber uses and invents and coins the pre-trans fallacy.
And there is a developmental logic of moving through stages. There is a dialectic that's happening here and a story that makes sense where one stage moves to the next. Another thing is that stages aren't skipped.
No stages are skipped. We have a lot of evidence on that.
If you haven't really deconstructed blue from orange, if you don't have that deconstruction of blue from orange online, then you're not at a higher stage. If you don't have the green deconstruction of orange online, then you're not in second tier. You have to have transcended and included these ideas in a way where you can demonstrate that you acknowledge and understand the valid, true, and important points that are made at these different stages. And Wilber doesn't do that. Wilber doesn't talk about the orange deconstruction of blue. Even when
I get this, and I think that I want to bring it back. Like, this is where I think the one-on-one might be kind of necessary, because I feel like we both might circle around things in ways that we're not really aware of. Like, you're saying that you've you had an experience of nirvikalpa samadhi, and that term is from a tradition. It's the only way I know to get to that is through the way that they tell you to get to it. So how would you otherwise have that information? How could you attain what this state may have imparted or taught you other than by invoking the only language that describes it in existence? And if there is other language, then I'm open to that. I feel like Integral is the first step towards having vocabulary that isn't rooted in a traditional space. But yeah, it's definitely going to start by pulling those terms from those spaces. It doesn't mean that, and I mean, it's so clear on this, it doesn't mean that we're buying into the mythical, which are the predominant aspects of these religious traditions, the mythical parts of them. They have to be honored to a certain extent, it would seem, to experience the states as far as we know. Very curious to see a resolution to that. I think it's an open question.
Talks about orange, he talks about it like a person at blue. He talks about it like a creationist. He cites creationists and tells creationism stories for evolution. There's nothing in any of his work that shows that he's deconstructed blue from orange, just like there's nothing in his work that shows that he's deconstructed orange from green.
The work itself it demonstrates that he's deconstructed amber from orange. That's what it is. That's what it's doing. That's like all it's doing when it's doing that.
He never talks about that stuff. He talks about blue. So these are some of the many reasons why Integral is not actually a second-tier worldview. Integral is a biased conflationary worldview from a regressed lower stage of development. What's that? Oh, I think I hear you. You're saying the difference is that Integral integrates. It's not just simply traditional blue worldview, but it also includes science and postmodernism and has a method of integration
Is that what I said? Is that what you're saying? You guys saying that?
on the top. Yeah, I understand why you might think that's a legit perspective, but the problem is that it cherry picks science. It doesn't actually include the scientific deconstructions of traditional worldviews. It doesn't actually take into account what science.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna explain how science has disproven nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi. Is that where? I mean, isn't that where we would have to go with this?
Science actually says about emergentism and these scientific positions. It cherry picks science and it cherry picks postmodernism. It cherry picks green. It doesn't really include the philosophically advanced existential perspectives of green.
Cherry picking is an inevitable. Why am I stumbling on my words? Cherry picking is an inevitable aspect of an integral meta theory, any kind of meta theory. You're going to cherry pick. It can't not be done. You have to pick the things that are the better representations of the major categories of reality.
It includes pluralism and it talks about care for everyone, where it's like we're all one. So of course that allows for truth in all worldviews and extending care to all beings. So these ideas aren't actually additions to their traditional worldview. They're just understood in relation to that worldview. But let me tell you something. Fundamentalist Christians will also say that they're cool with science, except for in the ways that it proves them wrong. They'll cherry pick science too. And I know a lot of Christians who also think this, like, love everybody and this kind of stuff is also compatible with Christianity. This whole Jesus is a hippie and Jesus cares about love. They haven't done the extra thing of try to build this kind of integration system on top. I'll give you that. That is philosophically advanced. But because Integral hasn't really processed and included what's actually happening at orange and green, its integration is...
I kind of, I'm not sure if the point made it through there. So there are Christians who go beyond level 4, and I guess we're saying into a level 6 space, and treat it in a kind of hippy-dippy, woo-woo sort of way where they are open to the genuine, where what they're looking for out of the religion is the state experience, is the sublime bliss. And yeah, I've known people like that. They're exceedingly rare. But in that case, I mean, so what? Where do we go from there? Like, is that person's, now that they've outgrown the tradition, they should abandon it and stop using that vocabulary and stop understanding their experience in those terms? Like, maybe so. I think this is just an open question rather than like a conclusion that we're all on board with. I think that's like an issue with I think that there's a lot of assumption that that a lot of people are in Integral like would be on board with this sort of notion that all of the expressions of religions only do the level 4 lifting and none of the state work lifting. That's kind of what I'm trying to get out of this. Like, I'm trying to understand
Just a
that.
conflationary justification for the blue worldview. It's super sophisticated blue, just like religious apologists have sophisticated blue. Wilber's basically coming from a type of postmodern cultural context that ends up favoring blue ideas like Buddhism, not the local blue ideas like Christianity, because we already know that's
Right.
ridiculous.
Okay.
But the foreign blue ideas, now
This is a
that's
legitimate
ancient
cultural
wisdom.
point.
So
Yes.
there's a bias against local forms of blue and also science and materialism. So we have to look elsewhere, either in the past or in other cultures, to try to find the ancient wisdom and the secret hidden meaning. And this is why I say it's not actually healthy green. It's not really existentialism that fully deconstructs all relative human meaning. It's just switching from one tradition to another. It's a more dumbed down cultural version of green
Yep,
that
it's
gets
an unThinkMe
enacted in
video,
kind of
all
a
right.
traditional conformist kind of way. The tendency at green is already to kind of go to the buffet and pick out a bunch of things and act like they all go together. And that's why there are people who are
They
saying
do.
Integral is
They
just
do
green
go
on
together in the
steroids
human
or
family.
smart sounding New
That's what we're up
Agers.
to.
It's because the tendency at this level is for people to both talk about universals and start to advocate for their own.
Everyone, it's not just him. Everyone in the whole meta theory world hates green so much. It's like, is that so? Like, I think it's kind of beautiful. They're like equal to a bear. They see a bear, they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, I could see how that thing understands stuff. It's not a bad guy. Like, that's cool. I like that. I think that's very mature and responsible. But we all hate them so much because they won't make any of these sort of distinctions that we're making.
Kind of personal languages and personal maps. For example, I know a guy, he's Christian, he believes in God, he believes in Jesus, his worldview is blue, but he talks about a type of unism, which is basically his way of saying that all religions are true, but then he kind of conflates it all as if what they're really talking about is God. He acts like he's agnostic
Baha'i
and
faith does
poetic or
this.
whatever, but really he's a Christian. It's the
Right.
same thing that Ken Wilber is doing. Of course, Ken Wilber's version of it is much more complex and sophisticated and nuanced and philosophically advanced. But remember, there have been...
We're drawing like a stark cutoff between being level 4 and not being level 4. I see these levels as existing and running within people at all times. Like, you could do like yeah, the religious tradition, Christianity, this is all centered on that level 4 system, that level 4 structure, but the extent to which a person individually embraces that doesn't tell us much other than that itself, that just this is how much they're doing the religious membership thing. And we have to ask that question. This is what we're looking at. When you get to orange, your personal truth, your personal reality, and that which you feel and express and do must take rationality as a higher principle than mythology. When you reach orange, there's no disputing that in Integral, in these stage model meta theories, that's what happens at orange. But that doesn't mean that you completely abandon your membership. You're still a member of all the same stuff you've always been a member of. It's just that now you've unthinked yourself from the membership structure. You're standing apart from it and looking at it rationally and saying, do I want to reject this? Can I fit in with this? Can I work with this? Can I grow it up? You're asking these sorts of meta questions to the amber. It doesn't always mean a full rejection. Usually the full rejection of the lower stage is like an immature expression of the higher stage. It's when you're integrating and embracing the lower stages, I think that it's the more mature and healthy perspective that we're looking for. Hey, we're getting a couple voices in there. Right or less right is one of the most important differences of green and teal. More or less right, yes. That filtering is what makes integral theory teal. Yeah. What type of conditioning leads to the automatic blind embrace of the jump cuts and everything? That's just through exposure to my content. It just... we're gonna gaslight you into accepting all of my terrible production until I learn better.
Christian philosophers and religious philosophers who made these super complex philosophical
Right.
systems, super rational, but not
They were
really.
trying.
They snuck their religious ideas in through the
'Cause they
back
would be
door. It's
killed
a
if they
common
didn't.
thing in philosophy. And
fired.
Islam kind of does it too. They'll say that you don't have to become a Muslim, but being Muslim is the best way to help you be on the best path in relation to God. But they think that all people from all other traditions are trying to pursue God in their own kind of way. They just might be slightly confused about it or whatever. Even my mom, who's a Christian, will admit that God is beyond a human's ability to really fathom or know what it is. And she might also say that other people in other religions might also be naturally drawn to religions in their places and really trying to pursue God. But she's a Christian. She believes in the Christian God. You'll be thinking that you're making kind of progress with her, like pushing her into some kind of agnosticism, and the next thing you know, they retreat back into
the fundamental claim to truth. That's what I think shows up as a level. Like when you get past all the talking stuff and the person shows their true colors. What do you really think? What's really going on in your heart? What are you going to get up and do tomorrow morning? That's the altitude level that you're at. And oftentimes, I mean, I'm thinking not just your mom, like Ben Shapiro or something. My truth, the first one, the one that comes before everything else, is that claim of there is a God, and that's the starting point of making sense. As opposed to I'm a rational skeptic trying to figure out what's going on, being like your fundamental claim, and causation and identity being the sort of axioms of orange meme rational consciousness.
Assumptions about what God really is. Jordan Peterson does this too. He acts like he's going to do this kind of integration of different traditions, and he acts like he's taking it metaphorically, but he's a Christian. It all comes back to Christianity. And remember, Ken Wilber made that video where he was basically saying that he thought Jordan Peterson was integral. One of my best videos is talking about
This is, okay, we got to be fair about this. If we're talking about Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris, these people are changing over time. Their outward expression, their platform, who they're affiliated with, it seems to be changing over time in important ways. So what Wilbur said about Jordan Peterson is often in reference to that early Jordan Peterson that exploded into prominence. And that the way that I think any of us would talk about what he's doing in the last 4 years, I think that would be a different picture, because what he's doing is a different picture. I want to talk about Sam Harris a good amount too, but you haven't brought it up. Let's not bring it up.
Problems with that. But even Ken Wilber kind of recognizes what Jordan Peterson is doing as a type of expression of integral. And that should be very telling. The whole point of me bringing up all of these examples of people who are...
I think that his refusal to simplify to embrace a model or simplify it to a model or reconstruct it down to fundamentals, I think that